Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Open and PHL podcast. I'm your host, Carl.
And I'm Danielle.
And on this podcast, we share the stories of the artists, stores, restaurants, and other businesses that make Philly special. Today, we interview David Milstein of Philly Tempeh.
David talks tempeh science, how vegan food isn't just for vegans, and the importance of having others to help you grow. All right, welcome, David, to the Open and PHL podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me.
We'll start at the start. Are you from Philly?
I'm not. I moved to Philly from upstate New York in 2012. So I've been here since then. But I live in South Philly right now.
Cool.
Yeah, shout out South Philly. What neighborhood?
I live right by Dickinson Park. So I think they call it Dickinson Narrows or Pensport or some other made up new
Whitman.
name.
I've heard
or
Whitman
something.
also.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just South Philly, I guess.
You're like a 10-minute walk north of us. We're at like 4th and Jackson.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, it's super close.
Yeah, cool.
Love it here.
All right.
What brought you to Philly in 2012?
Oh, well, that would have been right out of, I had graduated school and was basically, kind of just figuring out where to go. And my sister lived in Philly and I had some friends here. I say upstate New York, but I mean, Binghamton is like just over the line, I guess, from PA to New York. So it seems like it should be farther away, but it's super close. Anyway, it actually made sense for me to move down to Philly, at least temporarily. But it ended up being, a while, at least till the present. But I didn't expect to like Philly so much. It was very affordable, very fun, lots to do.
Yeah, I came from the Poconos, so we're relatively close because Binghamton is just up 81 from Scranton.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Did you go to school?
Super close. In Binghamton, yeah.
Nice. What did you study?
English and film. And now I'm making tempeh. There's a long road there, but that's another whole story. But yeah, English and film, and I did some editing work when I moved to Philly, and mostly also working in restaurants, because editing wasn't paying really enough, and so you kind of had to do two jobs, and from restaurant work, it was I did insurance sales for a little while, and I owned a record store. I opened a record store in Philly on near Bainbridge. It's called R&D Vinyl. I ran a record label for a bit, and just kind of bouncing around a few different things, and landed on Tempeh about a couple years ago. I guess that would have started in 2019. So yeah, a bit of an unusual path, I guess. And I don't know exactly where that spark kind of came from. Maybe it was like just randomly eating it one day and being like, hey, what the heck is this stuff anyway, and when you try to figure out, okay, well, where can I get something like this, and then realize you can't locally, and so that's largely where the idea of the business came from.
When was the first time you had tempeh? Did you have tempeh before you moved to Philly?
Oh yeah. Not in any like crazy memorable way, I think. I mean, but what I mean is like, I would just get it at the grocery store, right? I don't think I ever had it like at a restaurant or something like that. I probably was just, seeing it next to the tofu or whatever, and trying it out. But I feel like I really started digging into it more when I was living in Philly, like after school, living in Philly, by myself, and coming up with like new things to make for dinner, because I started to kind of like cycle between a few just like a few comfortable dishes, and you get very bored of them, and so you try to eat out, but then it's a crazy amount of money to do this, so you got to kind of start getting a little more creative in the kitchen, and it's fun too. It's fun to be like thinking about dinner, and grocery shopping is a little more exciting when you're seeing things as like imaginative, future dinners rather than like this obligatory, like, okay, I got to pick up the same, things to every week. But just Tempeh kind of entered that cycle of like, okay, here's something that, because on pen and paper, it was like a kind of a dream food, like something that I could regularly eat. And at the time too, I was especially not interested in eating so much meat, aside from the, million reasons not to eat meat. Just as a very practical thing, my schedule is so erratic that just keeping track of like, when is my, which meat is going to go bad, then I got to freeze it and I got to remember to defrost it in the morning. And it was just such a, well, it was a logistical cooking nightmare, beside all the, obvious ethical reasons. So tempeh seemed perfect, but I wasn't in love with it. It was a thing, I cooked it a bunch of different ways and I never really fully got into it. It wasn't until I started learning how to make it myself that I started to really enjoy it. But to answer the question, this would have been maybe, I don't know, just for the past like 5 years on and off trying to get back into eating tempeh, and it hadn't really sticking until recently.
Yeah, I went vegan right around the time that I was learning how to cook for myself, and I didn't want to learn how to cook meat, so that was part of my motivation for going vegan. So definitely the logistical thing. It's a lot more convenient when your protein is plant-based because you won't poison yourself. Um,
Oh yeah, and that's definitely a consideration. You don't want to uh, get sick.
yeah. So did you just Google one day how to make tempeh?
Oh, hmm. Oh, you mean how to not how to cook with it, how to make it from scratch?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. When I was cooking with it, I did try to get creative because I was like, okay, like first thing, this is from buying in a grocery store. Maybe I would just chop it up for a stir fry, something very simple, and it was okay. And then I would like slice it in different, maybe if I made it thinner and if I marinated it. And I know not a lot of people love the store bought stuff, but I never really got too excited about it. It wasn't too great for me. But that was about the time that I was trying to like go back into the tempeh thing. It was kind of like entering my grocery consciousness like maybe every year or two. And so it was happening again. I was like, okay, got to give tempeh another try. And I think that was the time where I probably was just thinking like what is tempeh anyway? Like once in a while, with meat, like okay, like it's an animal, I guess, or fruits and vegetables. But like tofu, I was always like, I don't even really. It's a weird gelatinous cube. Like what is this? And tempeh, I kind of had a similar thing. Like it looks almost kind of moldy. It's kind of weird. So I looked it up, and it was kind of weird that I didn't. I don't know. You go so long eating a food before you think to like let me actually check out what the heck this is. And so tempeh, I did that and I looked it up and I read about it. I'm like, okay, it sounds kind of weird, but it's kind of interesting. And then in looking that up, there was just a lot of information about how it's made and how to make it yourself. And it sounded interesting to me. And coincidentally, I had my mom got me a instant pot. It was like one of those big hot, everyone was getting these things like maybe in like 2019. It was like, I feel like the most recently was like the air fryer. Everyone's getting air fryers, and before that it was like, the instant pot was this big Christmas present or whatever. Uh, and and so she got me one, and I had seen in the tempeh thing, it was like how to make tempeh in an instant pot from scratch. And I was like, well, I just got this instant pot. It seems like an easy way to do it. Uh, and in my interest in tempeh, it was like, okay, why not, try it out. So that was the first batch that I did. I did it in the instant pot. I did it with chickpeas just to see if that would work. And I followed a recipe, and it worked, and it was cool. And then we tried it, and I had some vegan friends come over who kind of felt the same way about tempeh as me, although they stomached it more. I mean, I guess if you're you know strict vegan and you really want to make sure you can eat the stuff, you enjoy it more, and so they gave it a much better try than me. Um, but they tried out this tempeh that I just made, and I don't even know if it was any good. But it was homemade, and they loved it. I mean, it was very, very different than the store bought tempeh that we had all been eating, like night and day different. Not like, oh, so like it was a completely different thing, not just like patting myself on the back. Like anyone could make tempeh at home, and I'm sure it would, it'd be pretty good, like baking at home or whatever. Um, But that was really when I had that eye-opening moment of like, okay, this is very different. Like if tempeh always tasted like this, I'd be eating it all the time, you know. Um, and obviously that's part of where the business launched off from.
So what was it about like the store-bought tempehs that you thought you could improve on? Because I have my own thoughts about store-bought tempeh, and I mostly agree with you. But
Well, I don't know. I mean, maybe it's reductive, but I just thought homemade just tasted better. I don't know. Like you can compare it to like why does like a bagel you get from the bakery on a Sunday better than like the Thomas pre-wrapped bagels or whatever. Like nothing wrong with getting those bagels. I eat them and stuff too, but no doubt about it, like the fresh soft bagel from the bakery is going to be better. So like I don't know, fresh food is just it's better, and if you're gonna I mean, scientifically, there's a bunch of reasons why the process that the tempeh goes through gets reduced in this way. But just on like on a consumer level, on an enjoyment level, the you know there's a bitterness to the store bought tempeh. There's like it struggles to hold uh, any of like the marinade or the flavor as well. And I feel like a lot of the recipes also start with like make sure you steam the tempeh for 20 minutes or something like that, and it's just kind of nuts. It's like you got to beat this food up and do all the stuff to it just to make it like appealing, just to even be able to eat it. And I always thought that was strange. It's like you should just be able to eat it. And fresh tempeh, you could just eat it. You can eat it raw, which is there's various considerations, like may not be healthy for everyone to eat tempeh raw, but fresh tempeh that you make yourself, you could eat it raw. And and you can cook it plain too. You just fry it plain, maybe just add some salt and oil, and it's awesome. And I mean, maybe you can do that with like store-bought tempeh, but I don't think it's going to be as good. And if it is, great. There's nothing, it's just nice to have another option. And if somebody wants to make tempeh at home, uh go for it, and message me. I'd love to, I can help you out, give you, and tell you, what some of the things that I learned along the way. And that kind of stuff happens all the time. And it's it's not impossible to make it yourself. It's a lot of work, but if you want to do it, you should. Or just get it fresh.
definitely agree that fresh always tastes better. And I feel like the store-bought tempeh has like a gamey kind of taste to it. I guess you could describe it as bitter. It just, I don't know. There's just something a little bit more rank about it. But I mean, for for anybody listening, tempeh is fermented soybean, so they do go through a fermentation process. Um, David, could you give us just like a high level overview of how tempeh is made, the process?
Definitely, yeah. So tempeh is it's pretty similar to tofu. Um, but tempeh uses whole soybeans. That's why you see the beans kind of poking through the white cake. Uh, Tempeh has like a very basic definition would be that it's a cake of fermented beans. It doesn't have to be soybeans. It's usually soybeans. Doesn't have to be soybeans. It's just a cake of fermented legumes, right? You can use grains, all kinds of stuff. So what happens is the beans are cooked, and it only really has one ingredient, which is a culture. It's a certain spore that grows on and in the bean and pre-digests it, so it's easier on your stomach when you eat it. So that's why with fresh tempeh or any tempeh, really, it should be easier on your stomach, easier on you to digest than any other processed soy food. Like if you've had veggie burgers or vegan burgers that use soy protein isolate, or even tofu to some degree, any of these like really processed forms of tofu potentially could be a little bit harder on you. Not that it's bad for you, but if you've ever had like been like gassy, or just like it's not the most pleasant thing or something like that, tempeh theoretically and in my experience is definitely easier on you because of these kind of probiotic, pre-digested properties. So what you end up with is this white cake, because part of the fermentation process is it grows this the white part called mycelium, and the beans are put in a plastic bag. So as the mycelium grows, it's contained in the bag and kind of presses everything together, and you have this nice little brick of 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 beans. Now, if you're used to seeing it in the supermarket, it doesn't really look like that because they compress the life out of it. You end up just seeing the beans with like a little bit of the white, sort of, and maybe in between the beans a little bit, or kind of sprinkled around. That's not what tempeh should look like. It should look like a nice big white fluffy cloud, not a completely compressed, reduced, choked out, beaten up slab of beans, right? So that's basically what, and I keep saying soybeans, but again, this could be any beans. We've been mostly doing soybeans, but certainly chickpeas, split peas, lentils. Tried it with quinoa. Quinoa is actually really a nice way to do like a tempeh veggie burger, which we're working on down the road.
You've been pretty creative with your tempeh, and of course, Danielle's a big fan of your chickpea variety. What inspires you to create these new takes on tempeh?
When I started just on my own making tempeh, the first one I made was the chickpea tempeh. I thought it would be interesting. So I guess it was kind of just made out of a curiosity. And the idea that tempeh is so associated with soy, and I thought, definitely from a business perspective too, wouldn't it be interesting if you could have something like tempeh, which is a known and like delicious and nutritious food, but have it be even so universal that even someone with a soy allergy, or who's just detests soy for one reason or another, can still enjoy it. So you have just a whole breadth of people that are able to enjoy tempeh for the first time. So that was really maybe the spark of it, is like opening up the idea of a fermented bean cake, tempeh, to all sorts of people. The chickpea, the split pea sunflower, the lentil. Why do so many different varieties? Well, that's kind of like how it started. Was if you're going to try it with one, it just sort of made sense. Like, well, why not try this, or why not try that? Maybe they'll taste different. Maybe they'll be better suited for different kinds of recipes, things like that. So that was largely the considerations behind choosing those. And as we were experimenting with them internally, we started to discover that there were ones that we liked more than others, or that we had different favorites or something. I personally really like the split pea sunflower. I like the way that the sunflowers kind of crisp up when you cook them, and it adds a whole new texture to the tempeh. Because I'm very, very simple when I cook it. I cook it mostly, without a lot of marinade, without a lot of other stuff. Pretty plain. And this split pea sunflower, I found, had a lot of its own kind of flavor, and that's sort of what it was like. Is just having different kinds for different recipes or different flavors. So you're not just eating the same thing every single day, and as much as I love, any particular food, you eat it all the time and you're going to get tired of it. But, if you can have 4 or 5 different kinds of tempeh, you pretty much can eat it every day, and it won't ever really be the same. And you can't really get, too tired of it, because they do all have a different taste.
Yeah, it's definitely a departure from what you see in like the regular grocery store. You have like the Light Life original, and then the 3 grain, and then the flax one. And that's usually all you see.
Yeah. And a note on that too. When you look into like what's actually in them, the quantity of actual beans starts to become a little bit even questionable. Like, it's marketed like it's a positive thing, like, oh, 3 grains or this or that, but really it's like just kind of watering down the actual nutritional value. I mean, they're putting like, brown rice or like whatever in there. Like, I don't know. I'm not too impressed by that. Like, oh, cool, you put rice in there. I mean, I could put rice in this tempeh, definitely save a lot of money on the ingredients and stuff. And if it's what people want, I could do it. But I just think it makes more sense, like, to just make tempeh as, simple and honest as it can be, and just put like the best ingredient, into it, and let it just be like that. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm not super sure why they haven't gone into a lot of the non-soy varieties. Maybe there's just not much market for it. But I've found that there are plenty of people that really appreciate it, and they're outspoken too. It's a lot of emails and messages and people who are like, maybe it's the chickpea, or maybe it's the, split pea, and they're like, this is the first time I've been able to like eat tempeh, like, and they have all this really nice little stories and things about it. Or maybe the soy was giving them stomach aches before, maybe they had difficulties digesting soy, and now they can enjoy it this way. um all kinds of nice little things like that.
It's always great when you can introduce a new plant-based protein into your diet that's not just like a highly processed fake chicken or fake burger or something. So I definitely can see how excited a lot of people were. I really do like the chickpea variety, but I'll have to
Oh,
try
cool.
the split pea sunflower one because I'm very intrigued by the how you set the sunflower seeds like crisp up when you cook them. So
Yeah, yeah, they crisp up. It's pretty nice. But yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing with like, especially with how popular the what's it called, the Impossible Burgers and the Beyond Burgers and all that kind of stuff. And then there's like a million other with like goofy, names and things like that coming out. They're good. I really like them, and we've replaced in what we cook, in the house. I mean, we had been eating some red meat, not even that long ago. But we've managed to replace all of it with all that Beyond Meat and stuff, pretty easily, and it's been working out totally great. uh, and we feel better too. But a lot of that stuff is like not really super good for you. Like, I mean, if you're going to eat an animal or you're going to eat a plant, eat the plant. If it tastes the same and everything about it's the same, then just, why wouldn't you? You have to be crazy not to do that. Um, but in terms of like actual nutrition, like, I don't know if eating like a burger, even if it's a plant burger or a meat burger, like, it's not necessarily that much better for you. And in terms of like your health, like, I don't know, you can't be eating that stuff every day is what I'm saying. All the pre-processed proteins and stuff. I'm not like super knowledgeable of this stuff. I'm very like, I was thinking about it very simple. There's no way you could be eating that kind of like factory made stuff every day and like not have some kind of negative effect over time. What I think is great about tempeh and very basic plant foods like this is that it's very simple, and it's not even just a plain bean. It's even better because it's a pre-digested bean. It's like a facilitated for your body, like, here you go, you know already, prepared for your body to absorb all the nutrients, tons of protein, tons of fiber, potassium, all of it. And I think it's a good way to balance your diet too, than to be, constantly going for, yeah, like the frozen, fake chicken nuggets and fake burgers. And it's like, oh, I'm vegan, I'm healthy. It's like, well, you still got to pay attention to this stuff.
yeah, just because it's vegan doesn't mean it's healthy, even though it's marginally better because you don't have the animal derived cholesterol.
It's
And
definitely better. There's
yeah,
no doubt about it. It's got to be better.
yeah, it's
I definitely
better,
don't think it's worse.
yeah,
But I don't think it's like a one-stop solution to completely improving your diet, like, and then all the time they're coming up with like, oh, I don't know, this is a whole other tangent, but like, whole wheat pasta was like what you're supposed to be eating, and then everything's gluten free. And then like, oh, soy protein is good, but no, it gives you, oh, the estrogen's bad. Oh, but that's BS. And it's sort of this crazy ongoing thing. But like, tempeh is something that's been around for so long. People have been eating it for so many years in so many different ways. It's so simple. And I'm not afraid of it. You know what I mean? Like, these, new kinds of foods they're creating, and I don't know, we're all just kind of like being experimented on to some degree. But you stick with something that's just something that just grows on its own. I don't know, it feels like a nice um, safe, safe, healthy option.
So I saw that you did make some chickpea based tofu before. Is that something that you're currently offering? And what was the
Oh
impetus
yeah.
to make that?
Um, I don't know. We tried it out, and it's uh, it's something I'm thinking about still. I would say there wasn't anything wrong with it. Everyone really liked it who's tried it. But I think it's like I've kind of got my hands full with the tempeh right now, and I think I was like overextending a bit to being like, oh look, I can make this and I can make that. And then once it was made, it was like, okay, so like, is this part of the business? Do I have to figure out how to do all this? And so I think that was just kind of like on the periphery of like a stretch goal of like, yeah, this is something possible, but certainly not something we can be really focusing on right now. And it's unfortunate, but there's kind of a lot of ideas, uh, in probably in any business that sort of are like that, where you get an idea, you try it out, and then it's like, wait a minute, what am I really doing here? Like, I got to get back on track or whatever. So anyway, what you're talking about is called Burmese tempeh. Oh, sorry, Burmese tofu. It's a chickpea tofu made of chickpeas. And I mean, tofu is really more complicated than that. There's a lot of different steps in making, like normal tofu made with soybeans. This Burmese tofu made with chickpeas. It's called tofu, but it's really much more simple than that. It's really just kind of a cake formed out of the chickpea uh, flour, right? So when we make chickpea tempeh, or when we make any tempeh, really, we have to dehull the beans. This means removing the skins from the bean itself. This allows the culture to infiltrate the bean and ingest it, so that you can get a nice, healthy grown tempeh. If you leave the skins on, you get into all kinds of troubles. So in the process of removing all the skins, you do end up with some flour waste. So my idea was, okay, what if we don't, what if we collect all this flour and turn it into something else? Maybe in the vein of like non-soy tempeh. What if we could do non-soy tofu? So we started to do that, and we sold it a little bit. But like I was saying in the beginning, it's a little too out there for us right now while we focus on tempeh. But I mean, if people are super interested in it, then like let me know, and it's something I could definitely like focus on more. But I'm getting the sense that getting tempeh out there is a whole job in itself, let alone like an entirely new way to think about tofu as well. Maybe next year.
Yeah, the tofu could be like a limited edition thing that you only do like during one season or something, maybe make it exclusive.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, it's cool, and it's pretty easy to make, and and again, if you're and for people listening, Burmese tofu it's easy to make on your own. You just need to get some chickpea flour, and you can make it at home. Um, if you want to try it. I don't think it's like better than tofu, but it has a completely different taste, and you can pretty much use it as a one-to-one replacement in recipes for tofu. It acts almost exactly the same as tofu, um, but it tastes like chickpeas, and it's kind of neat.
I noticed that you've said "we" a couple of times in reference to when you're making the tempeh. Do you have any employees currently working with Philly Tempeh?
Oh yeah, it's it's not just me. I mean, it's mostly just me, but uh, yeah, I mean, you can't make like 100 pounds of tempeh a week by yourself and get it to everybody. You need help if you're gonna. I mean, maybe somebody could do it, but I couldn't do it. But so we have help, and it's me and a couple friends, and we've managed to distill the process where 3 people are able to do it very efficiently, um, in a single session. So, but yeah, but essentially, I mean, Philly Tempeh it is. I'm the only owner. It is pretty much you know just me. But I keep saying we because um, when you're dealing with that many beans and you're lifting 100-pound pots around a room and bagging and all the it's a team effort. There's no way I could be doing that on my own, and they've I guess that's about it. I'm sorry. Yeah.
So are they just like your friends that you hired, or did you kind of reach out to other sources and like go through a formal hiring?
Yeah, it's mostly just been me and a couple of friends. I haven't gone through any kind of formal hiring, and it's been uh, it's been nice to have like a core, you know, group, because the process of making tempeh is a little bit complicated, and there's a lot of nuances to some of the steps involved. So to have people that have been doing it with me for so long, weekly or biweekly, they know this process by heart, and you don't need to micromanage a lot of stuff. So that's sort of um, that's like a huge thing, to be able to start a batch, and maybe if I leave the room or go focus on something else, I know that they're puncturing the bags in the right way, and rinsing everything in the right temperature, and all those little steps that you're usually hovering over to make sure it's correct, especially with something like tempeh is pretty scientific. um, to have that trust that these guys got it is awesome, and it makes the whole thing um, really, really, really awesome and possible to do. There have been also a couple other people that are not originally friends of mine, who have reached out and said, hey, I think what you're doing is interesting, and I just moved to the city, and if you ever need help, this and that, uh, and it's cool. And if more people did that, then like that would be kind of cool to be able to like to have like more people involved and like teaching everyone about tempeh and things like that. But we've had like some people like that come in and learn the process, and make tempeh with us several times. And especially with like COVID now, it's like definitely not like the time to be like rotating in too many strangers, and like no one's really interested in doing that right now. But we did it in the past, and I think that probably later, as obviously as things clear up, I'm sure we'll be doing a lot more stuff like that. And it's fun to meet new people, and spread um, the Philly Tempeh crew to some degree.
Yeah, that's cool. And when you work with people who are like kind of like closer to your circle, they're a little bit more emotionally invested in it as well. So it's nice to have that peace of mind and that investment.
Oh, definitely.
Tempeh has featured in sandwiches in a bunch of restaurants around the city. So can you talk about some of your favorite sandwiches and where people can get them?
Yeah. Although I will say that since COVID, a lot of these places have stopped serving it. Our business hasn't tanked. We weren't, obviously we're still around, but almost all the restaurants that were regularly ordering from us stopped. And I was a little worried at first, but what happened was, even though the restaurants stopped ordering, the grocery stores like tripled their orders. So it balanced us out. So we were able to keep going, with about the same volume. But it does kind of hurt. I mean, the restaurant aspect of things is like not super the focus of Philly Tempeh. It's that has always been, in my opinion, like a good way to have these consistent highlights of it throughout the city, where it's a bit of that validation of like, you know, look what you can do with this, or like, oh, look at like this chef is like interested in using the tempeh, and like it feels great, like to have that kind of showcase or of the product and things like that. Like for an example is Royal Tavern. I would say when I moved to Philly, I remember having the tempeh sandwich at Royal Tavern, and anyone who has been to Royal Tavern would immediately know like what I'm talking about, because it's like one of the more like, even if you Google tempeh sandwich Philly, I think like Royal Tavern is like usually like probably the first thing to come up, and they were just known for the sandwich. And
Love that.
so yeah, and so I remember thinking to myself, just in the back of my mind, when starting Philly Tempeh, like thinking about it, seeing it in restaurants and being like, man, like I remember that tempeh sandwich at Royal Tavern. What if they use this tempeh? And having that be kind of like a cool goal or idea. And it eventually happened, because the chef there, emailed me and asked me about it. I met him, and he loves the tempeh, and he like was praising it like crazy, and it was like so humbling, and it felt so cool because it was like my perception of tempeh in Philly, like is that sandwich at Royal Tavern, and like now that sandwich is going to be the Philly tempeh version of it, because they had undergone a bunch of renovations and then brought it on as like a special. Um, since COVID, that stopped, so I don't think they're serving it right now. Although he emailed me and didn't email back again. It's been a lot of that stuff too. It's been a lot of like these, hey, what are you up to? Emails from these businesses that are like, these restaurants that are coming back up, and but I'm not pushing it, or like I know that restaurants are struggling like crazy right now. I operate upstairs at Honey Sydney, and I'm very aware of the struggles that they've been having. So I'm not like hassling restaurants right now, like, hey, how come you're not ordering tempeh anymore? Like I know exactly why they're not doing it, and I hope they continue once business is hopefully back to normal. To answer the original question, yes, the Royal Tavern sandwich, if that's available again soon, would be great. Although currently, the High Street on Market Street, they're associated with Fork, a super nice restaurant. High Street serving a tempeh banh mi using Philly tempeh, and they're grabbing like 10 or 20 pounds a week, and they've been doing it consistently all through COVID, and they've been super great, and I would definitely recommend checking that sandwich out. It's awesome. And also, Algorithm is a food truck with a really cool name, and they are a vegan food truck, and they serve Philly tempeh there too, and you could definitely check them out. They've been getting it consistently also every week all through COVID. And I think that might be it. I think it's just those two places right now. The other 10 places all stopped ordering, but maybe by summer, we'll have a whole bunch of new dishes to talk about.
Yeah, the Algorithm food truck, they're in Clark Park a lot, aren't they?
Clark Park, that's right.
Yeah, I've seen some amazing photos of their food. Is definitely
Oh, it's incredible.
yeah.
Oh, and I should also say the International, they're also a great place, and they were ordering, they stopped, but they just put in a new order, and I'm giving them tempeh probably tomorrow or the following day. So that will probably be on their menu by maybe next week. I don't know when this podcast is coming out, but yeah, but check them out, see if it's there.
I mean, people don't have to go to a restaurant to get your tempeh. You're also carried in V Marks the Shop.
The other easy way to get it is Philly Food Works. They're a grocery delivery service. They've been absolutely crushing the Philly tempeh market across the city. I'm like super happy with the amount they've been able to provide for people. So definitely that's the easiest way, and that's delivered to you, and you don't have to risk getting sick going to the grocery store and all that kind of stuff. But also, I mean, we do occasionally sell it directly from the kitchen over at Honey's at 4th and Brown. I haven't been doing it every week. It's I think it's a bit more work than people realize sometimes. I think it's kind of hard to do it every single week to like have an individual custom fresh tempeh for everybody. But sometimes we do it. And I think once COVID's, kind of more of a thing of the past, I think it'll open up a few more opportunities to be able to do things like that a little bit more easily and openly, and with like a few more, employees involved. And that would be great, being able to give people tempeh directly, fresh every week. And we plan to do more farmers markets also once, a million things once COVID's over. And the farmers markets are obviously a very fun way to show people tempeh directly, cook it for them. We have little samples and all kinds of stuff like that. No samples during COVID. There's you can't hand someone a piece of food right now, but soon we'll be able to do that.
We'll wrap this up, David. Knowing what you know now, what advice would you give to your former self when you were just starting off a couple of years ago?
Uh, hmm. I I still feel like I am just starting off, so it's hard to say. Um, I think okay, I think I would say that I would start to figure out how to get the process better with three people sooner. I spent a lot of time working out how to do it all by myself. And I think that was a waste of time because every step of the process changes depending on how many people you have available to do it. And in the quantities that I was hoping to be able to make, it was impossible to think about it in terms of one person. But nonetheless, maybe it was like just a, independent, like this is my thing sort of mentality. I was like, before I figure out how to do it with three people, I got to make sure I know how to do it, with one person. And so it was like, weeks spent, like, 12-hour days, like going really nuts, by on my own. And I think I would say to myself that like you could have just skipped all of that. I don't think I learned a lot. I think I had to unlearn most of what I learned in that process and burnt myself out. It was mostly just a waste of time. I think that if I had started, like, hit the ground running with like, okay, assume you got three people or, even just two people, and it's like, okay, how do you do it? And so maybe that's the advice I would give is, formulate the processes because there's a lot of processes with Tempeh. There's a lot of different steps and there's a lot of different ways to approach it. So I think getting those things efficiently figured out earlier would have been hugely helpful. Much less stress than to worry so much about like how to do it with as few resources. Like you have the resources. Why it's unimportant to if you're ever in a situation where you don't have those resources, like you've got other problems, like skip that week. Don't like go so crazy. That's probably the advice I would give. But who knows? Maybe in another couple years, I would give the opposite advice. Do everything on your own. So I couldn't say, but that's what I would think right now.
Yeah, so it's important to know like every part of the process just so you're able to train people on it, but it's also equally as important to plan for more hands to be in the pot and kind of like Henry Ford it and figure out how to divide the labor.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe it really maybe it did need to be a combination of both, um, but the degree to the distance I went with how can I do this on my own was way too far. That was unnecessary and could have led to burnout prematurely.
Yeah, we don't want that.
Where do you hope to be in 1 year and in 5 years with Philly Tempeh?
Oh, hmm. Well, in 1 year, I hope that with COVID-19 being done, and I keep bringing this up because COVID-19, maybe you haven't heard it, it's a pretty big deal, right? It's affecting a lot of stuff. So it is largely impacting the food business to a very and just in the way that you interact with your other employees or interact with colleagues, like every single thing is affected by this. So in a lot of ways, I think it's stunted the growth of the business a lot. Like I was saying about the restaurants, losing like so many clients and this and that. It's anyway, assuming it all bounces back in a year, it would be awesome to have all those restaurants back, to have new restaurants, new clients, and yeah, to basically be doing just more. Like it's just I think we're on that path towards steady growth. So I would love in a year to have our names pretty prominently in a number of farmers markets and grocery stores. 5 years, it'd be nice to have a different kitchen. I would say a nice bigger kitchen. We've got a great kitchen right now, but it's an old building, so you've got no real temperature control. Whatever the temperature is outside, that's the temperature in the kitchen. It sucks, in the winter it's cold and in the summer it's like 110 degrees. And for making just about anything, it's unpleasant. But for making tempeh, it's it's a nightmare because tempeh needs to be between 85 degrees and 90 degrees. And if it's any less or any more, it's ruined. And so when your kitchen fluctuates between 20 degrees in the winter and 110 degrees in the summer, it's very hard. So we had to build all kinds of stuff to prevent this from happening. It's unlike like probably any tempeh situation in the world. It's like it shouldn't be possible to make tempeh under these conditions, but we've like engineered uh, like a whole incubation tent. Like we've been really like fighting the odds of this thing. So anyway, 5 years, be nice to have a kitchen where you do not have to do any of that stuff. And I can just have the tempeh in a controlled environment, and maybe there's even a thermostat. Wouldn't that be cool? And you can just adjust the thermostat and like everything just works. And so that's my dream for the future. And of course, then you can make 5-10 times as much tempeh.
For those listening, at the beginning of the interview, David showed us on his phone a camera that was on the tempeh. So he's currently monitoring the tempeh conditions as we speak.
Yeah, it's pretty futuristic, but it's pretty, because tempeh in order to ferment it and to have it grow, it needs to be under very particular temperature conditions. And you also want to, of course, like get a visual on it, check its progress, see how it's looking. And if anything goes a little bit wrong, you ruin the whole batch. And it's really a heartbreak to lose, 50 pounds, 100 pounds of tempeh in a week. Everyone's hard work for the week, hours of work and ingredients, and it all just, got ruined. And it could happen that easily. So, thanks to technology, I'm able to monitor the temperature of the cores of the tempeh and also look at the camera remotely. So I don't have to drive to the kitchen every time I just want to get a glance at it, and that's what I was doing. I literally would drive, all the way to the kitchen, look at it for a second, maybe tweak the temperature a little bit in the incubator, and then drive back home. But then the whole time you're home, you're all you can do is think about it and worry about it. Is it going to be okay? And it's there's some anxiety there. But having the remote controlled, you know, temperature and the remote, camera, it definitely makes for a better product, and to be able to check on it constantly. Very futuristic.
All right, we're going to take things out with the rapid fire. The questions can be one worded, or you can go into detail if you like. Does that sound good, Dave?
Quick
Keep things
questions
fun for the
with
end.
quick answers. Okay.
Sure. Yeah, pretty much.
Okay,
Seitan,
gotcha.
yay or nay?
Nay, not for me. Don't have a lot of information. It gives me stomach aches. I don't know. So that's a hefty amount. It's like eating like 100 loaves of bread or something. It's kind of nuts, but it tastes good. I don't know.
Wheat meat. What's your favorite part of the city? Your favorite spot in the city for a mental break?
Oh, I mean, I live right by Dickinson Park, so for me, it's like that's kind of just take a few steps outside, and I like that park a lot. I mean, there's a lot of dogs and a lot of kids and stuff, but you're not gonna avoid that. And I like dogs, so it's not a big.
Yeah, I was gonna say great dog watching up there.
Oh yeah.
Favorite Philly-based movie or TV show?
I don't know. What's yours? I don't know.
I want to say Sopranos because it's just right over the bridge, but I know that's a different
That
part of
doesn't
New
count.
Jersey.
That
No,
doesn't
it
count.
doesn't.
They're North Jersey, though.
Yeah, I know they're way out there. I just always imagine that it's close.
Can I say what about The Sixth Sense? Is that in Philly?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
It's all M. Night Shyamalan movies.
Yeah. I just ran through his set for whatever online streaming thing he's got going on.
Oh yeah. What's that called? The Prisoner, or I don't know, something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I've seen ads for it. It's on Apple TV.
Oh yeah, that's something I'll never have.
All right, what's your favorite tempeh recipe?
My favorite tempeh recipe, I like the Asian dishes. I like to just pan fry some tempeh, with a little salt, and then I'll add a teriyaki sauce, which is easy to make from scratch, and it's better if you make it from scratch, but you don't have to. And just some rice and vegetables. Awesome, quick, delicious meal. That's probably my favorite thing to do.
Sounds great. All right, David, where can people find you online or IRL?
Well, we have phillytempeh.com. And on our Instagram is a link. It's a link tree. Link tree is a beautiful, beautiful thing. It's just links. It's a dream. It's a true dream for anyone who wants to give someone else links, because you click on it and then there's links. So that's what I would recommend somebody do. Go to the Instagram, hit the follow button, and then hit the link, and then there's more links. And those links take you to all the places where you can find tempeh. So that's the Philly Tempeh Instagram is the destination.
At Philly Tempeh, one word, and we'll obviously have it linked via our Instagram. So can't miss it. All right, David, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about while you have the mic?
Yeah. Well, no, I think that was pretty thorough, actually.
Okay.
I would just say, you don't have to be vegan to give tempeh a try. It's surprising to me who ends up liking it. My stepdad, huge meat eater, right? Motorcycle driving, man's man, all the whole thing, army, that whole thing. And he eats tempeh plain. Never would have guessed, that he would enjoy it. And I don't even like it plain that much. It's got kind of a strong taste. Loves the stuff. So you never know, even if you're eating meat your whole life, and you don't want to get into the whole vegan thing, like, still it's worth a try. You might like it. It's not like a lot of other kinds of foods. And I would say that for anyone who has tried tempeh before and wasn't a huge fan, definitely it's worth giving the fresh tempeh a try, whether it's ours or wherever you're living. Try to find a local tempeh producer near you, or just try to make it yourself. Fresh tempeh, or even frozen tempeh that we sell defrosted, slice it up with a little oil and salt, pan fry it, and just try it like that. It's delicious. It's pretty good, and you don't need to be vegan to enjoy it. And it's not complicated. You don't need to, people approach it like, well, what should I make with tempeh? What's good to make with tempeh? And the answer is kind of boring. My answer is just like, well, whatever you're already making, you can make it with tempeh. A stir fry, just you can just fry it with a dipping sauce, fry it, barbecue sandwich. You can bake it into just about anything. Put it in your lasagna, crumble it up into little bits, put it in tomato sauce. You can turn a spaghetti and tomato sauce into a hearty meal, with the tempeh. So don't think too complicatedly. It's very simple. It's a food that's been around forever, and that's what I would say. Approach it simply, and I think you'd really enjoy it, vegan or not.
We really dorked out with this one. At least I felt very food sciencey.
What was your biggest takeaway from this interview with David?
I just didn't really know the process of making tempeh. I knew that the soybeans had to be fermented, but I didn't know that it actually grows inside the plastic bags that are used. And that is why it comes in that smaller plastic bag inside of the bigger one. So that was pretty fascinating.
Yeah, I admire David for keeping watch on everything, even when he's not monitoring how the tempeh is growing.
Yeah, it was he is so dedicated. It reminds me of people who are really into their plants like the plant moms and the plant dads. Like David's like the tempeh dad.
I can't say I'm too well versed in the plant mom or plant dad family role, but I can take your word for it. What do they look like? Are they just always watering and always looking at their plants?
Well, no, you can't be always watering the plant because you'll kill it. But people who just like care a lot about their plants and almost treat them like they're their children. Is just who I was referring to.
You think talking to plants helps them grow?
I don't know. I'm very bad at plants. That's why we don't have any in the house. We have everybody listening. We have fake plants in our house, except for these 2 little branches of eucalyptus that I bought from Trader Joe's last weekend, which are doing fine. I've killed air plants before. Like I'm just not going to waste the money.
Yeah, I think it's been eavesdropping on The Sopranos and The Wire talk from the TV. So that's our way of whispering to our fake plants and the 2 eucalyptus pieces that we have.
I'll pretend like that made sense.
To support the podcast, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts.
Connect with us on Instagram at openandphlpod. It's all one word.
Or shoot us an email at openandphlpod@gmail.com.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to go ship a bunch of e-com packages.
I'm going to go play video games, I think. If not that, definitely go to bed. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.